Hey, welcome to day number 3. You've made it to day 3. How's everything going? Right? What are you noticing? How are you doing? Like, really, how are you doing? Day 3, we're going to dive a little bit deeper on what environments have you noticed that you're in? Have you been staying home most of the time? Have you been in quieter environments? Have you had any group discussions that have come up, or have you gone to a restaurant? So if you haven't, over the next couple of days, look for an opportunity to go meet up with a group of people or go to a restaurant, right? Because I want to know, how are you doing in those different environments? Now, I'm not saying go to the casino, especially on the first day. You definitely want to do that because it's going to be way too loud. You just want to take them out with all the clinking. But again, when you go to a restaurant, how are you doing? And you might notice as you go to a restaurant, hey, I'm hearing more of the noise around me. But the question is, how are you hearing the person that you went to the restaurant with? How do they sound? Because what happens is when we lose our ability to hear, especially in the high frequencies, everybody's voices tend to start blending in with the background, right? And as their voices blend in with the background, then we're struggling to get clarity. So we're really looking at their eyes or looking at their mouth. We're trying to hear the best we can, and it just sounds like it's just all mixed in with all that background noise. Now that you have the hearing aids in, you're going to start to pick up their voice a lot more, but you might notice I can hear dishes clinking. I can hear all these other sounds around me a lot more. And again, it's that same process we're going through where the brain's still trying to figure out, like, hey, am I in danger, or is it okay for me to start tuning some of this stuff out? And over time, it will start to tune it out. But again, how are we as far as hearing the person, right? Wow, am I hearing and understanding them a lot better? Now, if I'm at a huge table and I'm having a conversation here, I can usually hear, the people right around me. But the person all the way down at the other side of the table, you're not going to really be able to pick them up, especially with all the noise that's going on. You'll notice that with the brain, we focus on one thing at a time. So a lot of times we think that we multitask, but really what we're doing is the brain jumping back and forth from one thing to the other. So we could be in that circle, and I can be like hearing Mary over here, and then Pete's talking, and then I'm kind of going back and forth. So those things can kind of start to occur, but when you focus in on a certain person, how are you doing as far as hearing them? And this is something that we want to kind of keep an eye on, because if we're noticing over the next few weeks that we're still struggling in this type of environment, then it might mean that we need a little bit extra help when we're in some of these louder environments themselves. So a quick story, my father-in-law, he has hearing devices, and I noticed that when we were at a restaurant that, he'd smile, shake his head, but I knew that something was going on, and I asked him, I said, can you hear us really well? And he said, well, I hear you guys a lot better with my hearing aids than without anything, but I'm just noticing I'm picking up all the sound around me. And what's neat about the devices that are out today is that in the app you have on your phone, you have the ability to actually target and have your hearing aids do different things than they would. Okay, so that's going to be in the software videos where we go into a little bit more detail on things that you can do depending on the brand of hearing aid that you have and the style and the model that you have. But it might be turning on a feature where it's going to process more of the noise around you, right? And be able to help you hear a little bit better. It might be you turning your directional microphones on so it cuts some of the noise from behind you out. It might be you just doing your own custom memory based on how you're hearing in that environment, right? So there are things that you can do, but I really want you to focus in when you're in these louder environments. What are you noticing? Can you hear the person you're trying to hear? If you can't, what are you hearing? Because when you come back to me and we have this conversation, I'm always wondering, like, what setting are we in? Are we in our everyday setting? How loud was everything? Did you raise the volume? Was it too soft? Like, What were you could you hear and understand them? Were they really tinny and distorted? Were they like, there's all of these different things, because there's so many different things that would mean for me to adjust the hearing aid for that type of environment. So again, as much detailed information as possible helps me when we go through and fine tune your hearing in certain environments. And it might be, hey, automatic doesn't really work for me and I need to have a special program for this certain environment. And if that's the case, all right, let's set one up and then have you test it and see how you're hearing in that environment. So does everybody need that? Not necessarily, but if you do, it's okay. And more feedback, more information you can give me, the better. But again, also realize we're only on day 3, so your brain's still going through this rehabilitation process and we're not at 100% yet. So venture out. If it's not a restaurant, maybe go for a walk. Just hear the different sounds around you. And again, write those down. Like, what are you noticing that you didn't hear before? So I'm excited to go through this list of things that you're making at your follow-up visit. So in the meantime, continue to enjoy hearing. And again, if you're having any issues, don't hesitate to ask, reach out to me so we can get those resolved and get you hearing the best that you can. Okay? I'll see you in tomorrow's video.